remember a difficult time in my life when it felt like the opening would never come, no matter what I did. Many of us have experienced these kinds of delays in relief, delays in attaining the things we desire and work for. This episode discusses the delay in Yusuf alayhi salam's being let out of prison and what it meant to the rest of his life story. I think today's episode may change the way you think about delays in your own life. This is Quran Conversations, the podcast for anyone who wishes to unlock the meaning and healing power of the Quran. I'm your host, Dalia Mogahed, an author, researcher, and a student of the Quran, and I'll be in conversation with one of my dearest teachers, Imam Muhammad Majid, a scholar of the Quran and longtime family counselor and congregational leader. We discuss Ayah 39 to 42, covering Yusuf's conversation with his cellmates, including his request for one of them to remember him with his Lord. If you're enjoying this podcast, please review it on your podcasting platform. It helps us more than you could ever imagine. Quran Conversations is sponsored by Fawakih, an online learning platform for Quranic Arabic, which I myself use. Start your journey in unlocking the language of the Quran. Go to fawakih.org/journey. We hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. Make sure to stay until the very end to hear this week's reflection prompt. For more spiritual insights, follow me on Instagram at Dalia Mogahed. Without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran Conversations. We are now at Ayah 39 in Surah Yusuf with Sheikh Muhammad Majid as my conversation partner and teacher, and I am Dalia Mogahed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا صاحبي السجن أأرباب متفرقون خير أم الله الواحد القهار. Fellow prisoners, would many diverse gods be better than one, the one God, the all-powerful? No, indeed. Imam Majid, why don't you start your reflections on this one?
Yeah, first he used the word Ya Sahibi Sijn, which is a way to soften people's heart in having a conversation, which is prison mates. But he called them Sahib. The word Sahib in Arabic is a companion that you spend a lot of time with. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called the spouses Sahib. صاحبة زوجة. Okay. صاحبته وبنيه. الله سبحانه وتعالى ينفر المرء من أخيه وصاحبته وبنيه. صاحبة هنا in this ayah, in this context, is meant to be a wife. So صحبة is being a company of someone. And one of the conditions of صحبة is that you adhere to the guidelines of صحبة. Which is being a caring individual, loving individuals. That's what صحبة means. صحبة also make a person understand the other person's needs. You know, when you are in company of someone for a while, you come to know their need. And there's sometimes صحبة is a short صحبة, sometimes a long صحبة. The صحبة, for example, of a person work with us at the workplace. Allah said in the Quran, "الصاحب بالجنب." الصاحب بالجنب in Surah An-Nisa. الصاحب بالجنب is a person traveling with you. Could be someone in the plane with you, even 45 minutes ride. You become your sahib because you be company of. Or a person who work next to your office. With the Sahaba, alayhim, they called them Sahaba because they lived with the Rasul for a long time and observed him. But they are being put in this prison. There's nowhere to go. You have nothing but have suhba, forced suhba. But he called them Ya Sahibi Sijn, or my fellow prison mates. That means I know you very well, you know me very well, and because you develop a relationship, you trust in me with this really private, intimate things you have seen. But I have other agenda. I want to share with you my belief. You share
Mm-hmm.
you share something very intimate with me about what you have seen. I'm going to share you something very intimate with me, which is my belief. What is important to me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that um, he opened up with them after they opened up with him to tell him about himself. First, he told them where he come from. He talked about Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub. He gave them a whole lineage of his, and then he posed a question, which is we call this using logic in arguing of the oneness of Allah, because in Tawheed there's two kinds of evidence: the Quranic evidence of Allah talking about the oneness of Allah, but the Quran also teaching us that you can use logic with people. Uh, as Allah said in the Quran, لو كان فيهم آلهة غير الله لفسدتا. If there was many gods that ruling this universe, they will collapse. The universe will collapse because they will clash.
Yeah.
That one God will say this and said أأرباب متفرقون. Subhanallah. And why use أرباب متفرقون? Not use آلهة متفرقون. Because you want to affirm first ربوبية of Allah. And they do understand the concept of Rabb because he used that with them as the concept of the king. The king is called Rabb, like Rabb al-Bayt, as we said before, the head of household, the Rabbat al-Bayt, the one who's a head of household. Arbab mutafarriqun. If somebody have many masters, many bosses, many lords, and each one they give a particular order, and they contradict each other. Somebody says sit, somebody says stand, somebody says do this, don't do that, but they are equal in their authority. Is that good? You think something that is good thing? خير أم الله. Like, can you have many gods or one God? In Tawheed, there's a unity of oneself. Subhanallah. Because you don't have this partition of oneself. You don't have this conflict within you that you answer to many than Allah, many gods. And that's why Tawheed is liberation.
Mm-hmm.
When a person believe in Allah, being liberated. He used a strong argument. خير أم الله الواحد القهار is the only one and irresistible. Can you ask him to think logically about imagining this contradictory concept that have many gods other than one God? And then he introduced Allah to them. أم الله الواحد القهار. He used the name of Allah al-Wahid, which is Tawheed, and irresistible. That means ulama said there's two types of qahr. يقهر الأسباب. How? Allah ordered the rain to come. هذا قهر الأسباب. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not resistible. No one can resist his commands. He give life, he take life. Also, that when people stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will not be able to refuse the questioning and the asking and the judgment. So he gave them like a tawheed in one pill. The pills, what the people, one pill, they said, the pill here is that one God, many gods are contradictory to logic, but he is the only one and is al-Qahar, the resistible. And we discussed the name of Allah al-Qahar before. You see, وهو القاهر فوق عباده وهو الحكيم الخبير. Is al-Qahir فوق عباده. He has irresistible, had power over his creations, but he's Hakim. Because the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connects infinite wisdom. Okay? Because people use their power in the wrong places. And also does not punish anyone or hold them accountable without they deserve it. Al-Khabir, well acquainted with people's actions.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't misuse that power.
Yes.
I love what you said. I just want to draw out some of the lessons from what you said and what I saw in the surah. When we're calling people to Islam, we have to be from among them. Ya sahiba as-sijn, right? And this is a place that no one wants to be in, but they're all there together. And yet he just finished telling them his noble lineage, and that he's a prophet of God, and that his family are the greatest people ever created. And yet he starts his call to Allah from a place of solidarity with them, not superiority. And this is incredibly important. We have to approach people by meeting them where they are and being with them from among them, and not see them as below us in any way, even though he's a prophet of God and these are cellmates. So ostensibly they're criminals, right? They're not even just ordinary people that he's meeting on the street. He's meeting them in prison, and they're likely there for a reason. So I think this is just an incredibly important lesson for all of us as we're engaging people in general, is to never look down on them, no matter who they are, what their background is, where we're seeing them, to always come to them from a place of solidarity and equality and not superiority. And I love what you said about this rhetorical question. He wants them to think for themselves. He wants them to come to this conclusion through their own capacity to think. He's not just he's not forcing it down their throat. He's posing a logical question, and he respects their intellect enough to do that.
Yeah.
He's not seeing them as, these are less intelligent people. They're simpletons. I just need to spell it out and tell them exactly what Allah is. He's giving them the chance to reflect themselves. He's giving them the opportunity to be part of the process so that they can come to this conclusion on their own. And we know from coaching, which is something I was trained in, that people will never change until they think it's their idea.
Yeah.
And so what your job is to simply ask the right question so that they come to that conclusion themselves. But just being preached to never works. Even when they're literally hiring you to tell them what to do as a coach, they won't listen. They won't change until it's their idea. So I thought that was really important. And finally, this idea of the pain and the stress and the anxiety of many gods.
Yes.
Of being pulled in all these different directions. It's such this lack of alignment and this lack of inner unity. I remember that in the workplace, sometimes people would have this brilliant idea that one employee would report to two people. This idea of you report to this person, then you have a dotted line to this person. And it would always come up as a problem where they would say, it's confusing. I don't know who to prioritize. I don't know what work to do first. Sometimes they contradict this is within one company trying to do something very simple.
Yeah.
It's stressful to have to report to more than one person. Just even within the workplace, imagine the Lord of the universe to be able to just say, I have one Lord. I have one job. It's so much simpler and so much more empowering and peaceful inside when you're able to do that. And he's trying to give them the opportunity to think that through, because they know what it's like to report to a worldly Lord. That's what they've always done.
Yeah.
And so he's using that experience to get them to reflect on the Lord of the universe.
Like they talk about many chefs in the kitchen.
Exactly.
Yeah. And interesting that he used the word خير. He said to them, أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ. يعني here he talked to them about what do you think the best, which is good, this or that, which is have them to realize there's a lot of goodness, there's all goodness is in Tawheed, and there's no goodness in Shirk.
It's a very positive message. It's a very positive way of approaching You know,
Yes.
this is an opportunity for you. This is
Yes.
something that's going to give you khair, that's going to give you goodness
Exactly.
in your life, rather than
Absolutely.
using a fear-based
Yes.
approach. Yeah. So just to summarize, what we've learned so far is he used their admiration for a skill he had to get their attention, to engage them.
Absolutely.
And he then rechanneled that admiration to Allah, to the Lord of the universe. He says, this is not from me. I don't take credit. This was given to me as a gift. He introduces himself, tells them who they are, who he is, so they know, you know, they are anchored in being able to trust him. Tells them that this is not a new thing. This has a long tradition. I'm not coming up with anything new. Makes them feel that this is established, that this is something they can trust, and then appeals to their logic after he establishes solidarity and a common origin of humanity. And I think all of those elements are so crucial when we're approaching people.
Yes, mashallah.
So let's go to the next
It,
ayah. Oh, go
then,
ahead.
after he
Yeah.
told them that, we had to read this ayah that he take them to the next level of Tawheed, Aqidah 101 class.
Yeah. Yeah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ما تعبدون من دونه إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان إن الحكم إلا لله أمر ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون.
You know, one thing that I was taught in the field of persuasion is it's very important not only to give someone an alternative point of view or say that something isn't true, but give them an alternative explanation for the facts on the ground. So meaning it's not enough to say this conclusion is wrong that explains this set of facts. You have to also give an alternative explanation for the same set of facts, or they won't believe you, because people want an explanation. People want something that satisfies their curiosity about why is this happening. And you say, this is not the reason why. You have to tell them a reason. You have to give them something to replace the wrong explanation. And here's what he does here. He provides an alternative explanation for why there is shirk. Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
So he's not just calling to the right way, but explaining what's wrong with the wrong way.
Absolutely. And one of the things that is really powerful here also, he says, إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم. Here, he said to them, and the Tawheed, إلا أسماء, and this is nothing but, things that you have. There's an emphasis here in the message itself. The powerful things here is that we should the concept of asma. Listen, all the shirk is musammayat, is namings. The names.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I didn't read the translation, so
Oh yeah. So go ahead.
let me do that.
Yeah. Let's read the translation. Yeah.
All those you worship instead of him are mere names you and your forefathers have invented, names for which God has sent down no sanction. Authority belongs to God alone, and he orders you to worship none but him. This is the true faith, though most people do not realize it.
Yeah. What I'm saying, the ayah talks about how people invented religion. They invented religion by creating concept, labeling it, naming it, creating terminologies, and around the terminology create a system. Like the idol worshiping. Hubal, Lat, Al Uzza, those are the names of idols that people elevated them and made a website for them. And then they made a propaganda, made advertisement, made them people excited about the shirk. The modern shirk, modern paganism, sometimes is glorifying materialism and they become God, glorifying ego and desires, become God. People become self-centered. All of these are gods, whether money or power. He says this, the danger of naming things or creating terminologies or creating religion that from all people thinking. Like in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that first thing he taught Adam alayhi salam are the names of things. Because knowledge about naming, who names, whoever control the terminologies, control the discourse. Absolutely. The intellectual discourse. Therefore, that you can call something that is so outrageous, you can call it self-defense. You know, but you're not self-defending, you are committing aggressions.
Right.
Or a person can call something like alcohol spirit, or can call getting low, getting high, or he can, he can call the relationship that is not acceptable, name it anything. And the same thing happen, you can call usury interest. There's no interest in it, it's against us. And the list is long. Even instead of calling the countries by the name, you call it Middle East. There's no Middle East.
Right.
There's particular country exists over there, and you try to avoid naming them, call it Middle East. Therefore, the naming of things. And therefore, he says that إلا سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم. You create your own discourse and you went against what God Almighty have revealed. ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. This is not the name Allah told Adam alayhi salam. It is not the name that Allah will ask to adopt and to accept. Okay. In al-hukmu illa lillah. The judgment, the ruling is belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This idea of human being created so many isms in human history. In the replacement of the divine guidance, didn't take them anywhere. Because all the isms try to address sometime and extremes happen. And respond to the extreme with extremes.
Right.
And the middle, the balance, they're leaving it, which is God Almighty guidance in those issues. He said, the commands of Allah that to worship none but Him. You cannot then start to worship a prophet. You cannot worship a human being. You cannot worship your ethnicities. You cannot worship any. ذلك الدين القيم. This is the religion that's well established. And as a Muslim, who believe that it's from Adam alayhi salam to Rasul sallam being one message, consistent one message. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Which is, he opened the window to tell them, I want you to ask me more. Many people don't know this. أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Therefore, he wanted to open the curiosity on them. He wanted them to learn more about this beautiful religion. And that's what he did. In the beginning, he he raised a question to create a curiosity. And then he said, many people don't know this. Therefore, he did not blame them. He says, maybe you don't know. Because sometimes he said, many people like you and this, they don't know this. So that they make a person feel good. Then you teach them. See, I know you're not the only person, That's why he said, ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. Many people don't know this. He didn't say that, وأنتم لا تعلمون. He could have said, and you don't know this kind of thing. He said, but many people don't know this. Said in general. So that have them not to feel so bad they didn't know this, that now I give you an opportunity to know it.
It's so funny you say that. One of the things we learn in like public speaking is in the question and answer. One thing you always want to respond in a way that is welcoming. So even if someone asks something very aggressive, you should start by saying, I think a lot of people are wondering that.
Yes.
That's an actual
Yes.
strategy to
Yes.
de-escalate, to get them to calm down, to not feel like we're antagonizing each other. And also it gives you a chance to think. So that's another, it's a little bit of a stalling tactic,
Yes.
but it helps everyone not feel like you're accusing them of being stupid or ignorant or whatever. By telling them, I think a lot of people are wondering that. And that's exactly what he's doing here. He's saying
Exactly.
a lot of
Beautiful.
people don't know. And I think this, I've just been reflecting so much on how often, and we talked about this before, how often the Quran says, وَأَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. It's like, and most people don't know, or most people don't believe. And it does set you up to expect that you will oftentimes be the odd man out. You will oftentimes
Exactly.
not be with the crowd, and to be ready for that as a believer, you will have to be brave enough to stand out sometimes. You won't always fit in, and that's okay. You're in good company. Don't worry. If you're not fitting in with your group, with your friends, with whoever around you, don't feel bad. It's to be expected, and it gives you the sense of comfort as well.
That's so beautiful. Because this majority minority dynamic sometimes.
Yeah.
You might have a child who is 10 years old find himself or herself the spokesperson of Islam in a classroom.
Yes. Sometimes 7 years old. Yeah.
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 And I think that's really very comforting to say, yeah, that many people are ignorant, therefore you don't assume that many people know also. Don't because sometimes we take it for granted. We think that many people know what Islam is.
Right.
But Allah said, "لكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون." Majority of them don't know. Majority of American people are getting misinformed information about Islam, and we have to believe that. You have to act and operate that they don't have the ill intention about Islam, but maybe they don't know what Islam is. Then I think you in your research found that those who come to know a Muslim, they have better understanding of Islam and Muslim. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, those who know a Muslim and who say they know a lot about Islam are the least likely to endorse anti-Muslim stereotypes. So knowing about Islam, just knowing like something about it, it's a protective factor against falling into Islamophobic ideas, basically.
You want more Muslim to go out there and to connect with their neighbors and to connect with their colleague and maybe invite people to your home.
Yeah.
Yusuf find himself in the prison because there's not any way to go. But we have to go to people now, and reach out to your neighbor. Is your is al-jar al-junub. The same ayah in Surah An-Nisa, al-jar al-junub wa sahib bil-jam. He said that either humanity are the following: either your relative, or your neighbor, or your colleague at work, or travel companions. The Quran spoke about all of this. Or a stranger who come to your community, ibn sabil, okay?
Yeah.
Or people in legal custody, prisoners. Allah said, do ihsan to all of them.
I know. It's such an amazing ayah. We should discuss it soon.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just going to say that the first step of this whole da'wah that he's doing is that he was of service.
Yes.
I think that's so important. And they came to him, said, you have this amazing skill. We want your help. And he took that as an opportunity to connect with them and tell them, I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm not higher than you. We're together here. Ya sahib as-sijn. So the first thing is service. Be a human in service of others. That is how you call people to Islam. Live Islam,
Yes.
and they will come to you and ask you.
SubhanAllah.
And then you can share yourself with them. But you can't be a terrible neighbor and then think,
So,
that anyone's going to listen to anything you have to say about morality and God.
what you said so beautifully, Imam al-Baydawi, in his tafsir, he said, وهذا التدرج في الدعوة وإلزام الحجة. He said this how gradually try to convince people and use evidence in conveying Islam. And you're right, beautifully you put it. Maybe people should use that as a methodology, in how to convey Islam to people. First, establish relationship, and then use logic with them, and bring down their tension, and then I like what you just said so beautifully, that service and service and service and service. By serving others, really, people get to connect. We have this idea in our method of connecting with people. There's something called heart, head, and hand.
Yes.
And we say that sometimes you start with your hand. You see somebody need help, go and help them. That's hand intervention, helping somebody. When you do that, then their heart, they're going to move toward you because you did ihsan to them. Even open the door in the mall.
Interesting.
That the hand things. And then the hand does something, and the person's like, this person really respected me, care about me. There's feeling there. And then maybe then have a conversation.
That's exactly what this set of ayahs show.
Exactly.
It really is a hand, heart, and then head.
And then head.
Yeah.
Yes, you reverse the order, because some people, they want to go to the head first. They want to have conversation.
No, you can't. Yeah. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. Yeah, we love logic. We want to just like, okay, I'm going to prove everything to you. And people aren't even listening because you haven't connected with them as human beings. Do you even care about me? If you don't care about me, I'm not going to listen to anything you say.
Yeah.
If you think you're better than me, I'm not going to listen to you.
So, I just want to give a shout to the Muslim Student Association, MSA. They taught me a lesson when I was the president of ISNA. They told me that we're going to they have something called Project Downtown. They said they want to take me with them to the share food with homeless. And I thought that they're going to just give the food like a truck or something, hand sandwiches. They said, no, Mama, this is not how we do it. I said, we're going to do it. So we're going to eat with them. Subhanallah, the most transforming experience I ever had in service. I have not experienced anything like this. Because you take the sandwiches, you sit down, and we in Chicago, and we're feeding people, I was sharing food with people, and we're having conversation with them. Who are you? Tell me your story, and so forth. It's amazing. And then we found a sister with hijab that was in an abusive home. She left and was in a shelter, and alhamdulillah, the community was able to connect with her to help her. But it's so touching that those people have felt so respected by those students sitting on the ground, on the floor, or the sidewalk, like talking, having a conversation with them, and eating that sandwiches with them. They're eating the same food with them. And I said to them, guys, you're really amazing, because they used the hand, then went to the heart, then had a conversation with them.
That is the prophetic way. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Subhanallah. Always, Rasulullah alayhi sallam, always in company with people and sharing food, not just handing food out. He was always in connection with people he's talking to, always on their level, no matter who they were. He would never make them feel like they were below him. And I just love, this was pointed out by someone, is that prophets often have disciples and he had companions.
Yes.
It's so beautiful.
So.
These people were people he heard, he listened to, they advised him on things. Men and women. It's this egalitarian principle in Islam is so powerful. So now he gives them the answer to their question. He doesn't just keep them hanging. So I'll go ahead and read. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا صاحبي السجن أما أحدكما فيسقي ربه خمرا وأما الآخر فيصلب فتأكل الطير من رأسه فيصلب فتأكل الطير من رأسه قضي الأمر الذي فيه تستفتيان.
Allah.
Fellow prisoners, one of you will serve his master with wine, the other will be crucified, and the birds will peck at his head. That is the end of the matter on which you asked my opinion.
What? Like imagine if he interpreted first. The guy, one of them said, like, that's it. He kept them hanging because he knows some of them gonna die, and he has to teach them tawheed before he died.
Yeah.
What he wanted first to say, this is an opportunity. This guy is not gonna live that long. One of them, and therefore, I have to save him. I have to talk about Allah, no matter what happened after that. Therefore, he took all of this opportunity because he knew the interpretation of the dream, but he delayed. He spoke about the most important things because he knows they're going to lose one of them.
Yeah.
He cares so much about them. Yeah, amazing.
It's a very hard message to deliver, too.
Yes.
Tell someone you're going to be crucified.
But you see the beautiful thing? He didn't tell them. He didn't tell the guy directly. He didn't tell him. Because he said, Ya sahib sayyid, amma ahadukuma, one of you. He didn't tell him one. That's why they said he had a private conversation with the one that he believed that would be saved. Private conversation. So that probably he told him, don't tell the other guy that he's the one who meant by this dream. Because he don't want to frighten him.
So one of you, he doesn't tell them which one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he whispered to the person who thought that he's going to be saved. Okay? If you are out, don't forget me. I'm going to come after that.
Yeah.
But the idea here is, he said, "Ya amma ahadukum فيسقي ربه خمرا وأما الآخر فيصلب فيصلب يعني crucified فتأكل الطير من رأسه قضي الأمر الذي فيه تستفتيان." طيب, that's what you asked me, and that's the answer. One ayah, he gave the interpretation of the dream. The ayat before it, many ayat explaining tawheed. Yani, he made them interested to hear about the interpretation of the dream. But in his heart, there's a heaviness that one of them gonna die.
Yeah.
I don't like him to die before I tell him about Allah. And that's what he told them. Subhanallah. And the word Rabbahu Khamra, that he will provide, one of them will serve his Lord, meaning the king. The alcohol will be a servant in the palace. وأما الآخر فيصب تأكل طير من رأسه, that he will be executed. To the extent that the punishment is being crucified and left. They will leave his body for a while until the birds come and eat from his head.
Yeah.
The cruelty of the punishment.
Yeah. I think it's really worth pointing out that this sort of is a bookend to the beginning of the conversation, where they asked the question, they told him the dream. So he established trust with them enough that they were willing to share something intimate with him. And they said that we see you as someone with beautiful character. So he already was both skilled and someone of beautiful character. So they came to him and trusted him. Then he told them, I will tell you the answer. So he made them understand that he heard them and that the answer was coming. So you
Yes.
can never just ignore the person's question and go on with your own agenda. You need to address what they asked and give them assurance that it will be tended to. Then he
Exactly.
went through his whole thing about, connecting with them on who he is and who Allah is and who they are in relationship to Allah. And then he delivered on his promise. He gave them the answer to their question. So he followed through on his promise. He could have just also, he's like, I did what I wanted. I had their attention. I'm going to go to sleep now. No, he did what he promised, which is, I'm going to tell you. And he did tell them. And then the other thing is he told them the truth. He did not sugarcoat. Now he wasn't harsh. He didn't say, you're going to die and you're going to, but he didn't sugarcoat a very difficult message. And I think that is the final that's the final lesson for us when we are doing our dawah. We cannot sugarcoat the truth.
Yeah.
We can't make Islam into whatever the person wants to hear.
Yeah.
I think to like, because our goal when we're explaining Islam to someone is to make it in a way that they can hear it, because we have to connect, we have to be on their level, but it's not for them to like it. It's for them to understand it properly. That's the goal.
Or for us to be liked.
Exactly.
Because sometimes we want to be liked. We're nice guys who just be nice to us.
We're tolerant and we're liberal like you and we're this and that. No, that can't be our goal. Our goal is are we conveying the message authentically in a way people can hear it, but still authentically.
Yeah, exactly. With
and
kindness,
that's incredibly important.
But firm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that come to my mind when he said to them that earlier, I can tell you what kind of food you're gonna have. So he established his credibility of he knows this, because sometimes people try to have you to answer the questions the way they want you to answer it, and
yes,
and then you said to them, listen, I'm going to answer your question, but let me explain it to you first. And I was told sometimes in an interview that somebody might ask you questions, try to frame it in the way that they get the answer they want. But you have to be authentic to answer what you think and the way you want it. Otherwise, the other person cannot dictate to you how to answer a question. And therefore, he answered the question, but he built an argument for them before he come to that conclusion. That's why sometimes they ask me questions. Imam Mahdi want to ask you this, yes or no? I said sometimes it's not yes or no. I'm not gonna entertain that. I have to explain it first.
yes.
Otherwise, if you don't want the answer, fine.
Right. Yeah, don't allow people to force you into a corner to answer under the framing that they choose.
Yes.
This is so essential, because whoever frames the question controls the discourse.
Yeah, some people ask me, like, why Islam accept terrorism?
Oh, God.
I said, listen, your question is wrong. We're not going to accept that, because
the premise is wrong.
Yeah, the premise is wrong. Yeah. Why you hate us? Really? You ask me why I hate
Why do you hate freedom?
Yeah, why you hate freedom? Why don't you love democracy? Why do you don't love democracy? I said, really? Why you are unwise in asking questions? Anyway.
We always have to question the premise of the question.
Absolutely.
We always have to examine it before you answer it.
Absolutely. Like some people ask, people ask you that, we learned that in theology. Can God create something that bigger than him? Right. They ask the word can. You say cannot, how come you say God cannot? I said, listen, your question is wrong, because you said bigger. That means you're talking that his greatness is limited. But there's nothing called bigger than him or greater than him, because he's infinite. and then nothing beyond infinity. Therefore, the question itself is wrong. The premise is wrong.
The premise
You know,
is
in
wrong.
logic, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Every question has a built-in assumption. So if the assumption is impossible, then the question doesn't make sense. So that question is, assume something exists bigger than God. Can he create it? Well, the
Yes,
assumption is completely impossible, so I can't answer your question.
exactly.
That's how it's actually, when you break it down, that's what it is.
Can we say one thing before we to go to the next?
Yes.
About dreams, which is going to come a lot also about the king. People ask me about interpretation of dreams.
Okay.
Yes, dreams are, as we said before, is a sign of prophethood and so forth. But some people sometimes they don't know what to do with the nightmares. In nightmares, you seek refuge by Allah at night. Rasulullah said, physically, you're like spitting on the left side, and then you move your body. When you change physical position in bed, it does change your psychology, and it change your your mood. Therefore, you feel that physically, have changed your position in bed. Inshallah, you will not have that nightmare. And some of those dreams, it comes from the worries that we have during the day.
Yeah.
Then we see them at night. One of the things is to reduce your stress level, you will have better dream. Because sometimes people have everyday nightmares, and they don't realize their stress level during the day. They have anxiety. The anxiety level is so high. Need to address that so that they have better sleep at night.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Would you like to go ahead and read the next ayah? 42.
وقال للذي ظن أنه ناج منهما اذكرني عند ربك فأنساه الشيطان ذكر ربه فلبث في السجن بضع سنين.
Yusuf said to the one he knew would be saved, mention me to your master. But Satan made him forget to do this, and so Yusuf remained in prison for a number of years.
Yeah.
This ayah is very controversial.
Yeah.
In that so many people have theories about what it's telling us. This is the delay.
Mm-hmm.
The ayah that talks about the delay in Yusuf's alayhi salam's liberation from prison. So I have a lot of theories about this ayah. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this ayah. So, we often wonder why the delay in the opening. Why is the resolution not immediate? And this ayah describes Yusuf's freedom from prison delayed after he was falsely accused of sexual misconduct. So why didn't his attempt at getting freed work? Why did Allah allow Shaitan to make this prisoner forget? Why didn't the opening come through these means? Wasn't Yusuf loved by Allah? Hadn't he been through enough? Wasn't he innocent and wrongly imprisoned? Wasn't he on the right side of truth? Then why? Why did the delay happen? Perhaps because Allah had a far greater gift to give him than he thought to ask for. A blessing that required the nurturing of time, because what he was asking the prisoner to do is remember me with, mention me with your Lord as what? A dream interpreter. And had Yusuf been freed as a useful dream interpreter, shortly after being imprisoned for a crime of honor, he would have been freed still as a dishonored man with a convenient skill. Had he asked for the women to be, asked about his case, they would have likely not confessed so soon, as it takes time for their conscience to be awakened. It takes time for women of their status and with so much at stake to undergo the necessary reflection, to ripen their conscience, to be willing to confess. They wouldn't have done it so soon. And so freedom from prison was delayed. And when it finally came, and Yusuf made sure to ask about the women who cut their hands, they were ready to come clean. And so was his original accuser, Zuleika. And this is so important. Time is required for people who bear false witness to sit, just can't take it anymore and confess. It doesn't happen quickly. And so he was freed, but not as a dream interpreter, but rather as a minister of finance with the vast wealth and bounty of a great civilization under his stewardship. And only under these circumstances that required a delay, that required time for the opening to come, would the prophecy from the beginning of the 12 planets and prostration come to pass. They would not prostrate to a dream interpreter.
Yeah.
They would not show him that kind of reverence. No one bows to a dream interpreter in the court of a king. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
He was, he's hardly even acknowledged. People show reverence to one in authority with the treasures of Egypt under his trusted hands. So let us be patient with the delays we experience in our asking and never give up trying. Sometimes Allah withholds for a time to give you more than you know to ask for. Sometimes delays are necessary for dreams to come true.
This is so, so beautiful.
Thank
So
you so much.
so inspiring, so beautiful. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Wonderful. Actually, they say you nailed it. This is really beautiful. It just make me think when you're reading this, or you're saying this reflection of yours, that I get it from your reflection now. 3 things. One is the delay always when you ask for things now, and Allah doesn't give it to you. You have to believe that there's a reason you don't get it now. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to you to go through a process of cleansing sometimes, and spiritual transformations, and also maybe if Yusuf alayhi salam went out of prison as this man went and go and talk to the king, because the whole idea here, he said to him, go and remember my name and tell the king that get me out of prison. Imagine if you get out of prison, you would have not been known. He has to be in the prison until the time comes and the king see the dream, and then the dream get him out, and as you said, becoming now in charge. You could have just they release him, amnesty, and become like not to be known, forgotten, and those women were not
still a scandal around
exactly,
him,
and those women who had not have met repentance. And you're right, the delay was for everybody. It's amazing that what you're just saying, because it just benefit everybody, even the other people, to realize the wrong they have done, and then he completely come out in the amazing way that been celebrated, not just been released like anyone else. One of the things that scholars discuss in this ayah, فأنساه الشيطان, who shaitan made forget ذكر ربه. Some ulama said this, referring to Yusuf alayhi salam, instead of asking Allah, he asked this man. And some scholars says no, the person who forgot to remember is the prison mate. Forget to mention him to the king, which is more logical, because the next ayah said وَقَالَ الَّذِي نَجَى مِنْهُ وَادَّكَرَ بَعْدَ أُمَّةٍ.
Yes.
that he remembered later. That means he remembered the opposite of forgotten. He forgot to ask. If he forgot and then remembered, that means the prison mate who the one who forgot to talk to the king. Now he said فلبث في السجن بضع سنين. بضع سنين means less than 10. In Arabic language بضع سنين means less than 10. دون العشرة. The beautiful thing that you just said, because I'm making tafsir on what you just said, is that, the timeline. When you make a dua, for example, you ask Allah for something, and then you say, Subhanallah, this is my dua 2 years later, 3 years later.
Yeah.
Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forget our dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ما كان ربك نسيا. The wrong happened to people, injustice happened to people, and Allah does not forget those. Don't ever assume that Allah forgotten, will forget this, what happened to people. And therefore, Yusuf alayhi salam, he stayed in prison for a reason. That is the time become right. That when Egypt become in need of him. Because at the time that he asked the king to release him, was the need of the king. Then Allah made the king in need of him.
All of Egypt is in need of him.
Yes,
now.
The king came to him, and he said, "Going to the king."
Right.
And therefore, that's amazing. And what amazing way of Allah opening. The opening happened to him. And that's why I say always, sometimes the difficulties in our life bring so much goodness. We should not ask for difficulties at all. But sometimes when we are in difficulties, you have to look at it as an opportunity. That something great can happen out of this. عجبت للمؤمن أمره كله خير. The believer, all his or her affairs are good. Something difficult happened to them, they become patient. Something good happened to them, show gratitude. Don't ever assume that, it is that attitude of interpretation of events. You have to be able to interpret events through the spiritual lenses. Allah have so much good for us. So much good for us. Just we need to trust him. Trust him. And Yusuf alayhi salam put his trust in Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not only bring her out of prison, but elevate him in the land, establish him in the land. And Allah said in the beginning of the surah, when he was sold into slavery, he said, لِنُمَكِّن, so that we can establish him in the land. But it took slavery, it took prisons, false accusations. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have vindication of him, that he being brought out to be the most important man in Egypt at that time. SubhanAllah.
I just want to also remind us that in our own history, the very famous story of Emmett Till, a boy who was lynched because he was accused of whistling at a white woman. And she didn't confess until she was almost going to die. He was lynched, he was killed.
SubhanAllah.
And she maintained her story all the way until the end of her life. And then she finally confessed. So It takes a long time.
Is it the young man in Loudoun County?
No, this is the very, a famous lynching from American history in the 50s, I believe. Emmett Till. I don't know if he was in Loudoun County, actually.
Yeah, because one of the Adams Boy Scouts have made a memorial for a boy who was lynched in Leesburg, and part of his ego project, he wanted to build a memorial for him. Now, by a Muslim boy.
That's beautiful. I mean, there's been 3,000 lynchings in American history or more. So it could have definitely been someone else. This was a very famous case where he actually
Oh, wow.
A 12-year-old boy and his mother insisted that his casket be open so everyone could see what happened to him. He was beaten severely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a movie about it, just came out recently. But
Wow.
this idea of confession takes so much time, especially
Right.
false accusations around sexual misconduct. The
Mm,
women, if they're falsely accusing the man, takes them years and years for their conscience to ripen
mm,
and
mm.
to finally divulge the lie. So being released
Subhan-
too early, they wouldn't have been ready.
that's so beautiful. Wow. That's great. I think we'll
Yeah.
spend good time. Then maybe next episode we'll talk about the king seeing the dream. Subhanallah.
Yes, that's gonna. I look forward to that conversation very much.
Alhamdulillah. This is very
Thank you so
inspiring what you
much.
shared with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share this episode with others who may be interested in the meaning of the Quran. Also, we love hearing from our listeners. Tell us your reflections at Quran.conversations, the Instagram page for our podcast. We read every single one. Finally, we hope this podcast encourages your own reflective journey with the Quran. This week's reflection prompt is: Yusuf alayhi salam asked his cellmate to mention him with his Lord, but Shaitan made the cellmate forget, resulting in Yusuf staying in prison for several more years. When have you faced delays in the relief that you are seeking? How does Surat Yusuf reframe these delays for you? Until next time, salam.